Who's your hurler of the year, Michael? I mean, I see a tweet here from Trumpspieler. Dan Morrissey, Kyle Hayes, Darragh O'Donovan are their nominees. Gillan, quiet yesterday, might count against him. Dan Morrissey, immense all year, so composed, rarely fouls. Who's your hurler?
I think they could end up with 3 nominations again here, because I think Owen Cody was played over yesterday, and I think the 3 nominations will be Kyle Hayes, Dermot Burns, and Aaron Gillan. And it's the players are going to vote on it, so that's what that's going to come down to. Burns would be the first one to win back-to-back ever, maybe, in hurling. I don't know if anyone's ever done it in hurling. Gillan would be an absolute certainty had he contributed a bit more yesterday. I actually think he picked up a knock early doors in like the first 30 seconds when the first ball went in. I think he might have even rolled over on his ankle. Yeah, listen, I think it's been an unpopular one, but I think Kyle Hayes, for the body of work throughout the whole year, and particularly when Limerick were going bad, and I just thought he was on. I thought when Limerick were going poorly yesterday, even in that second quarter, I thought he was huge. He linked up a couple of great balls with Lynch. Yeah, it seems to be an unpopular opinion, but it'd be Kyle Hayes for me.
Yeah, I'd be going for Aaron Gillan. What way would you be going, Leo?
A Limerick man, and I'd be, naturally enough, I'd be going for one of my own. But I think you can't leave Owen Cody out of it either. Right? For, Owen Cody yesterday, well, Kilkenny were in that game yesterday when he was getting the supply of ball. Owen Cody looked absolutely superb. He's improved the whole time. I think he's he has that killer instinct. And he has that forwards mentality, that thinking. I agree with Michael. I think Aaron picked up a knock yesterday. I think it was the very first ball that went in, and maybe if he hadn't, I think he might have rolled the ankle between himself and Hugh Lawler that time. I think maybe if he hadn't rolled his ankle, I think Aaron could have been putting down his hand and catching that one, because it bounced. It actually bounced before, and then the ball just broke away from two of them. Burnsy's missed consistency, but then if you look over the course of the year, Kyle has been absolutely immense. The battle between himself and David Fitzgerald outside the Gaelic grounds tonight that Clare turned over Limerick was immense that night, and when Limerick really needed Kyle Hayes this year, he's always stepped up to the plate. Those marauding runs up the field against Galway, when he went up and popped the ball over the bar with the one-handed, which has nearly become the Limerick flick at this stage, just was, Darragh O'Donovan using it, Kyle Hayes using it, throwing the ball in front of him, tore up the field. And it's almost like, go back to 2 or 3 years ago when he went up the field, got the goal against Waterford, got the goal against Tip. He's been Mr. Consistency. Limerick are using him as an attacking ploy. And then you throw in Tom Morrissey. Tom Morrissey always scores. Like, his shooting efficiency rate this year has been off the charts. He must be up around 91, 92%. That's a very little wides. And yet, I suppose, when you look over the course of it, and this is go back to John Kiley's management, strolling off the field yesterday with 10-15 minutes to go, knows his job is done. Like, there's so many Limerick players that I think that could be in the mix. But
Leo, who's going to get it?
Cody will get hurler of the year. Do you reckon the voting will go that way? Now, there isn't a split voting of old, so we always remember a couple of years there where one county would have their votes split, and someone else who probably shouldn't have been hurler of the year did end up getting it. Let's call a spade a spade. That did happen. I'm surprised you'd say Kilkenny, man.
Get it?
Huh?
The reason Cody might get it is because there's 3 Limerick players in the mix. That's Kyle, Dermot Burns, Aaron Gillan. And if they narrow it down to 2, right? And if there's three nominated, which there is every year, right? And then I think the Limerick player will get it. But if the mix is down to 3, Cody could get it because of the vote.
No, but the split vote doesn't happen anymore. So, Bernie, what way does it work exactly? Your vote won, and then your second preference.
Yeah, the chances of what you were alluding to, Shane, was when Seamus Callanan didn't get hurler of the year in 2016. and there was 2 Tipperary lads nominated, and Austin Gleeson ended up with Hurler of the Year. That's not to say he didn't deserve to get it, but the 2 Tip lads split the vote. Whereas that can't happen now anyway, and it won't do. If you're voting for one Limerick fella, it doesn't mean you're taking away significantly from the next fella. He could still be your number 2 or whatever. But I'd be amazed if a Limerick man doesn't get it. And but I think it's probably between Hayes and Gallan, and I just think, I can't believe the uproar around Hayes potentially getting Hurler of the Year when you look at the body of work. And there was 4 or 5 lads to me that were keeping the show on the road when things were going, I'd say things were ropey enough for Limerick, and Hayes was definitely one of them. O'Donoghue another, Tom Morrissey, Dermot Burns probably as well. A good few have mentioned Darragh O'Donovan. He had a brilliant year as well.
Darragh O'Donovan picked up 2 man of the matches this year.
That's true, yeah, that's true. I think Dermot Burns did as well during Munster too. But to me, Hayes has been nearly an 8.5 out of 10 the whole way through. But it's gonna be an interesting one. If the Well win it, the Well will have won Hurler of the Year in 18, 21, 22 and 23, which would be to have 3 in a row from the one club, 3 different fellas is just madness, really.
Who's your man of the match, Nicky?
Oh, apologies, guys. We're down to broadband now. I know how the GAO guys feel. No question. Cian Lynch, if you're looking for a player, I think when you're picking a man of the match, you have to look at not just what he's scoring himself, but how influential is he. When Limerick were stuck in a little bit of a rut in the last 10 minutes of the first half, he's the guy who took them out of it. And by going centre forward, and was so influential. And all throughout the second half, while the whole Limerick team rose their game, Lynch was there instructing everything and moving around and laying on the passes and just dictating. So to me, he was somewhat ahead of everyone else in terms of the influence yesterday, and that's why for me there was no question who was the player of the match yesterday. It was Cian Lynch. The other, I mean. Yeah, you're right about Peter Casey. I mean, look, he got some phenomenal points in the second half. I mean, from both sidelines, and he was fantastic. But look, in terms of the overall influence, Lynch was the man.
Who would be your Hurler of the Year, Nicky?
That's a good question. I think I know they gave it last night to Kyle Hayes. He probably wouldn't have been too far off. I mean, the one guy I'm just mesmerised didn't get enough mention. I think you were maybe alluding to Leo O'Connor earlier. Is Barry Nash. I'd have Barry Nash on my team any day of the week because he is a great defender, he's a scorer, and he's also able to set up scores. He has all the attributes that one would want. And I would have thought the way he was playing all year, he mustn't have been too far off it. He didn't even get on the team of the year. So it's very hard to know. I mean, Kyle Hayes probably wouldn't be too far off it, but in terms of influence and getting Limerick through this difficult year, Cian Lynch is not going to be too far off it either. And Gallan, look at it's down to a number of Limerick players, and it's probably a toss-up. And at the end of the day, the reigning player of the year is Dermot Burns. And I mean, while he was quietish enough by his own standards in the first half yesterday, he did come much more into the game, and that was down maybe to the way Kilkenny played the ball to him. But I tell you, that guy is radar personified on those frees. And when you have a half-back landing, what was it yesterday, lads? Was it 7 frees, I think? Seven frees and they won from play. When you have a half-back that can absolutely just radar-like stick it between the posts from 60, 70, 80 yards out, that is a massive, massive contribution. And clearly, anybody who's playing Limerick going forward in the future, one of the things was you cannot, if you give frees away in those sort of areas, it's almost marked down every time as a point, and that's a huge advantage to any team.
A defender finished as top scorer in an All-Ireland final for it must be the first time since Brian Whelan in '98, but he obviously played like 45 minutes at full forward. And I think Burns' frees, some people would say, oh, take away the frees from him and what has he got? But the frees are huge. Like they're not high percentage frees that he's putting over, but he's making them look so easy. And even a couple of the catches yesterday, he's taken what is possible for a defender to do on the scoreboard to different levels.
I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. Exactly. No, he's absolutely outstanding. As I said, Kilkenny didn't help themselves in the second half with the type of ball they were playing in that direction. But all that aside, Burns will only play what's in front of them, and he was phenomenal in the second half in particular. And you're right, any defender that can land 7 points from distance, and none of the frees were a gimme. But look, he has that radar like almost every time they go over the black spot, and that's how accurate he is. I'd say I'd say when his hurling days are over, he'll be a great golfer.
Yeah, Burns actually spent the early part of the year over in Dubai, I believe, and only came back midway through the league. Aaron Gillan was obviously not involved for a decent spell of that. Maybe the new thing is to come back fresh in February or March or something like that. Maybe the rest of us that are lads that are doing it from November the whole way through, maybe we're doing it all wrong. But it seems to have their form has definitely showed up, like just how good they were when they needed to be at the end of the year. And it'd be interesting to see. Kylie's been able to balance that, and I'm sure it's something they try and balance over the next while as well, just to make sure and keep everybody happy.
Yeah, but I think what John Kiley saw that as, John Kiley wanted this year's league as well. I know that they won it comfortably, of course, but he also wanted it to be an opportunity to give game time to some of the panel players, and he did that. He got game time to Hall O'Neill, Conor Boyle, and there are just a few names that spring to mind. There's a couple of more lads as well. So he got game time into them lads, knowing that he may very well need him come the championship. Now, as it happens, he didn't per se. Now, he brought them on in various matches and all of that, but he got some experience into him. So that's why during the league, the loss of the likes of Jamie Burns or Aaron Gillan or whoever else might be playing, that wasn't a real problem from John Kiley, because he saw the opportunity to give game time to other lads, and they're now more experienced, because you don't know when circumstances might force players to give up, injuries or other circumstances, and you need lads fit and ready and willing and experienced to come in, and that's what he's done now.
Would you expect many Kilkenny names to be on the team of the year? Who would you be expecting to be in there?
Well, the automatics would be Owen Murphy, Hugh Lawler, and Owen Cody, and probably TJ Reid. But there now, I know Mikey Butler got in. I think he had a great year, but probably Morrissey, Nash, and Hugh Lawler would have been my full back line in terms of contributions. But TJ will probably make it, I'd imagine, and possibly Mikey Butler. But that'd be 5, and I think that would be. I think that would probably be it. I think if we got 5, I think we wouldn't have too much complaints. I think Limerick last night, I think on the team of the year, they got 7. Now, to me, that would be the lower end of what Limerick would deserve, to be honest about it. And I know he had a good semi-final against Kilkenny, but it's a brave call. Tony Kelly would have to get on that team from my perspective. I mean, he did make a phenomenal contribution to Clare during the league, and I think it would be unfair just because he had a disappointing semi-final against Kilkenny, and he needs to get that out of his system. I still think he's a player that. But look, as always with these situations, there will be debatable points, and we'd all have different reasons. But Kilkenny with 5, I think, would be the upper end of it.
We'll have good crack doing our revised All-Star, Shane, in the next couple of weeks, no doubt.
Yeah,
I have no doubt there'll be plenty of argument, Shane. But I'm afraid, Shane, there mightn't be too many from your crowd.
Oh!
We had